The Trial of Magneto begins as a post-Hellfire Gala Krakoan nation's state of mutants reacts to the death of the great pretender, the Scarlet Witch, some with grief and many with literal cheers in the streets. It's an excellent kickoff to a proper X event, with a hearty dose of mystery that could well drive straight to the upcoming Inferno event in the X-Men comics line next month. Today I'll answer, who killed the Scarlet Witch? Is she even dead? Is The Trial of Magneto the best X-Men comic of 2021? Theories and predictions for what's to come here in The Trial of Magneto and the universe of X-Men comics to come. Hey everybody, I'm Dave Busing, founder and editor-in-chief of comicbookherald.com. You are listening to Krakin Krakoa number 192. If you like the Comic Book Herald YouTube channel, please consider liking, subscribing, sharing, and commenting. It all helps me out a great deal. Casual Krakoas air every Wednesday, circa 5:15 Central Standard Time. I'll be talking about the day's theories and answering listener questions, and these live episodes will also be available for all via the X-Men playlist on the channel. You can find those links in the show notes. Hey, guess what? Today we're going to talk about some big news regarding Jonathan Hickman and X-Men comics moving forward on Casual Krakoa. So find that link in the comments, find those links in the show notes. Otherwise, we're going to proceed with The Trial of Magneto, number 1. Written by Leah Williams with art by Lucas Werneck, X Factor investigates the murder of the Scarlet Witch, Wanda Maximoff, at the conclusion of the Hellfire Gala. A few things are clear from the introduction. First, as mentioned during a very good interview on the Battle of the Atom podcast, Leah Williams is pretty clearly writing Trial of Magneto as an expansion of X Factor, which was the original plan, right? This was going to be an arc in X Factor, but the X editors thought it should be an event. Editorial meddling is frequently a big problem and clearly led to issues with X Factor number 10 and the series' abrupt cancellation, but I will say, Trial of Magneto works well as an event. I don't know that it should have also meant the cancellation of X Factor, but I get the desire to see this fully fleshed out to its proper size. The other piece here is Williams selling the terror and horror of Wanda's murder, which we last saw in X Factor number 10 at the very end of that issue at the end of the Hellfire Gala. It's vicious and brutal, and perhaps most vexing, Wanda doesn't use her powers to try to escape or fight back, at least as far as the investigators can tell. During the investigation phase, I'll admit everything about the conversation sounds to me like Quicksilver could be to blame. The detectives mention that it was someone close to her and that there's no attacker DNA left on her person, meaning they used magic or a metallic weapon of some sort. The clear setup is to accuse Magneto, but given Quicksilver's impetuous past and arguably the fact that I've read Ultimates 3 and Ultimatum way too recently, this had me thinking Pietro was in play. As we'll see, I don't think that's right, but that was my initial reaction. Now, on the Quiet Council, we cut straight in media res to Magneto's pleas for the Council to resurrect Wanda, presumably as a mutant. And Professor X is clear that because Wanda and Pietro tricked Cerebro for a long period of time, much like Franklin Richards, in a thread that I'd really like to see followed up on, right? How are individuals tricking Cerebro into thinking they're mutants? What does this mean for the mutant state? Professor X does have old backups that make it possible in the case of Wanda. This raises some interesting questions, I think, about how much of their histories and pasts they could lose with these old backups, right? Could we be looking at a situation where a pre-House of M Wanda was resurrected? Is that an opportunity to sort of cleanse her of the sins of Decimation and House of M? Or is that too sort of, washing away the past and the fact that those things did happen? Now, I will say through all this in these conversations, Mystique is still suspect number 1. Given what I said earlier, I think it's possible and honestly likely that Mystique could have taken Quicksilver's appearance to put Wanda on her heels, to make her feel comfortable, and then taken her by surprise, right? And use some technology from Forge. Remember, she goes to Forge for Krakoan tech in her failed attempt to take out Nimrod to make it look like Magneto would have been responsible. I think Mystique is absolutely toying with Magneto here on the council. She's reveling in the fact that clearly he's going to be blamed, and this is punishment for the way Magneto and Charles Xavier have denied her destiny and just very, very cruelly kind of kept Mystique, or tried to keep Mystique, under their thumb in the Krakoa era. Perhaps the greatest knife in the back here is the detail that X Factor discovers here in this issue that Wanda was murdered, I think they say 2:56 a.m., but in Sword, which is where the Al Ewing written issue, where we see Magneto and Wanda have a very heartfelt father-daughter conversation. That conversation occurs, because everything in the Hellfire Gala is time-stamped pretty accurately, about 20 minutes after that, okay? The conversation Magneto and Wanda have in Sword happens about 20 minutes after Wanda was seemingly murdered, according to the investigation. So I think it's likely that Mystique was acting as Wanda in S.W.O.R.D. in order to make Magneto feel this grief even deeper. It's very, very much in the cards. Now, could we also chalk this up to just editorial like slippage and missing the timing of things? Absolutely happens in comics all the time. Although in the case of a murder mystery, that would be a really big miss. That would be a really bad mistake to have made. Don't rule it out. It's very possible. It might mean nothing, but that seems significant. And then too, you'd have Mystique if she pretended to be Quicksilver in order to trick Wanda, then pretended to be Wanda in order to trick Magneto. Honestly, if she went to sleep as Polaris, she'd have the whole set, right? She'd have the whole gang all in one evening. Now, the vote to resurrect Krakoa's Great Pretender is never really in question, with only Magneto, Nightcrawler, and Kitty voting in favor. So here's our Inferno schism, right? This is what I've been teasing. This is what I've been talking about for a long time in terms of what's to come in Inferno. We're going to have a schism. And I think Magneto trying to murder Professor X in full view of the Quiet Council, where he's basically squishing his skull with the Cerebro helmet, pretty bad sign. Pretty clear sign towards a schism in Magneto, Charles Xavier, right? So Magneto's absolutely racked with grief over this, a fact not helped in the least by a partying Krakoa, basically singing Ding Dong the Witch is Dead, right? Remember, absolutely no one is vilified on Krakoa the way Wanda is as the Great Pretender. Krakoan culture, like Crucible, is still very much built around the actions of Wanda's decimation, okay? After, in House of M saying no more mutants and wiping out all those mutant powers circa 2005, 2006. It's the ultimate exercise in holding a grudge. So the X-Men, they assemble to fight Magneto, who is just like, he is grieving. He is absolutely just not going to go in for questioning. In what is clearly, too, an intensely difficult confrontation for Polaris, his daughter, as one of the X-Men here, and very much the lead of Leah Williams' X-Factor, a character that she has, I think, transformed into the most interesting version of the character that I've ever read. Now, in retaliation to Magneto's, criticisms of Polaris busts out the can't take this back family drama, telling Magneto, you leave a trail of dead wives and dead daughters behind in your wake, and she's not wrong. She is not wrong. This is all a pretty big deal for Krakoa, as Magneto is also basically the hero of Krakoa, okay? The X-Men were just elected as Krakoa's heroes and Krakoa's protectors, they're mutant kind's protectors and of the planets, but Magneto is like the hero, through the Empire invasion, through his plans to make Planet Arakko, his history in general, and one of the Quiet Council. He's a big deal on this island nation. I've talked about Inferno likely operating as a kind of Krakoan civil war, but we're already seeing a version of that right here. It started. It's here. This is what's going to set up Inferno. Now, after many questions about his whereabouts, Quicksilver bursts onto the island to nearly kill Magneto. It's honestly some of my favorite Quicksilver writing in decades. I really like Williams' framing here of Quicksilver as the deeply caring, overprotective brother, leaning that energy away from the tired, incestual parallels too many writers, what's up Mark Miller and Jeff Loeb, can't seem to quit. In the aftermath of this, Quicksilver is joined by the rest of the original Brotherhood of Evil Mutants, Toad, Blob, and Mastermind, in the Green Lagoon to share a drink and mourn Wanda's passing. It's a nice historical X-Men callback, going back to like Uncanny X-Men number 4 by Stan Lee and Jack Kirby, but it's also a bit odd considering Mastermind and Toad were the creepiest dudes toward Wanda in those early Stan and Jack comics. I mean, I guess in their eyes they were friends, looking at the good old days of the Brotherhood, although I can't quite imagine Wanda herself would agree. And we may actually get the answer to that, since the twist of sorts at the issue's conclusion, it's a good one, in that it would seem, despite all appearances, Wanda is not actually dead. Instead, she's floating in some kind of magical limbo. Ladies and gentlemen, we're floating in magical limbo, which makes a lot of sense. Again, it's strange that a character this powerful would be taken off the board seemingly so easily. It's better to have it otherwise. I think, too, this move helps give Wanda an actual potential story instead of using her as a prop to move Magneto, and leaves the door open for Wanda actually taking action in this saga, which is good. Likewise, a death of Scarlet Witch in the wake of WandaVision and before the MCU's multiverse of madness next year simply rings hollow and like some abysmal strategy, right, in terms of corporate synergy. It doesn't really help the story to leave her resurrection a mystery. It's less about what will happen, right, or less about will it happen in terms of resurrection, and more about the mystery of how. That's a more interesting story to me, and it seems like that is the story we're going to get. So I think all in all, the kickoff to Trial Magneto, I really loved it. I thought it was excellently done. I think Williams and Werneck are operating in tandem extremely effectively. The next issue, Trial of Magneto number 2, the Krakoan reads Avengers Assemble. This is going to be the big, the Avengers come to mourn the passing of the Scarlet Witch, and of course, chaos will ensue because Magneto is still fighting everyone, seemingly, and has no plans of abating. If you want to find all of the X-Men issues, you can go over to comicbookherald.com, check out the Reign of X reading order, where I am putting every mutant appearance, every X-Men related comic in chronological order on the site, of course, starting with House of X and Powers 10, and now weaving our way, through the Dawn of X, and now into the Reign of X. You'll find all of this placed there as well. But again, in general, I thought this was a great start to the Trial of Magneto. I'm interested in what you all think. Who done it? What do you think what do you think the plans are here with Wanda? And also just in general, what did you think of the event? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear it. Thanks to everybody who backs Comic Book Herald over on patreon.com/Comic Book Herald. Your support is greatly appreciated. In particular, thank you to the mysterious benefactors. Thank you, Jesse W., Megan Getman, Cole Weathers, Martin Lopez, Brent Bowser, Professor X3769, Richard Renz, Verisimilitude, Terrandort, Ed Mackey, Clyde Glide, Pinball Drew, Mike Solomons, Matt Mahoney, and John Samander. Thank you very much for your generous support at the Mysterious Benefactors tier. I'm Dave. You can find my stuff at comicbookherald.com, at Comic Book Herald on social. Look for the best comics ever and My Marvelous Year podcast for more from me. And again, Casual Krakoa will be live here at 5:15 Central Standard Time. You can check it out live, or you can check it out after the fact. It will be in all the playlists. Check out the links in the show notes. Thanks everybody for listening, and as always, enjoy the comics.